week we're going to look at approximating square roots. Before we do that, let's look at squares a little bit. What's the area of this square? Well, we know that the area of a square is the side times the side, or 2 squared, so that area is 4. This one, the area is 4 times 4, 4 squared equals 16. And this one, the area is 6 squared, or 36. So just a few things we figured out about squares of a number from looking at that. We know that the square of a number can be thought of as the area of a square having those sides. We can write it as the number squared. Oh, and you probably didn't see that from this, but it is a good idea to memorize the squares of 1 through 15. On your practice paper, you're going to have those squares, and we want you to fill in the squares from 1 to 15. We're not going to do it right now. Notice, however, that when we talk about the side of the square, if we think about that side squared, that gives us the area, or the perfect square. So let's go backwards. What if I have an area of 36 and I want to know what side it is? That's the square root of 36. How do I do that? Well, I know that 6 times 6 is 36, so the square root of 36 is 6. How about this one? If the area is 12, what's the side? What's the square root of 12? A little more difficult, because if you look at our chart again, there is no area with 12. So how do we come about figuring out what that area is? Let's look at a number line. If I have a number line showing the side of the square, the number from 1 to 5, and looking at the square of that number in there, then I know that the square root of each of those numbers, each of those areas, is my number that I'm talking about. 12 is somewhere between 9 and 16. So the square root of 12 is somewhere between the square root of 9 and the square root of 16. Where is it between 9 and 16? Let's zoom in a little bit. If we zoom in, we see that 12 is just a little bit less than halfway between 9 and 16. In fact, halfway between 9 and 16 is 12 and a half. So if we're looking at approximating the square root of 12, it has to be a little bit less than halfway between 3 and 4. So I'm going to estimate my square root of 12 to be about 3.4. Now if I want to check that, I would take 3.4 squared, and 3.4 squared is 11.56. That's pretty close to 12. I think I did a pretty decent job of estimating. Now you get to try one. Look at the square root of 28. Think about the fact that I have a square whose area is 28, and I want to figure out the side of that square. I want to find the square root of 28. I want you to all think about that for a little bit and give you some time to work this problem. Did you think of 28 as being between 25 and 36, so that the square root of 28 must be between 5 and 6? Well, where is it between those two numbers? Halfway between 25 and 36 is 30.5. 28 is less than 30.5, and so 28 is not real close to 30.5, so it's not 5.5. And it's significantly less than 5.5. So I'm going to estimate that the square root of 28 is about 5.3. Now if I check it and take 5.3 and square it, I get 28.09. Well, a darn good estimate in my opinion. So I have a question for you. What's this?
That's the square root of 5, of course.
Of course. That's it for this week. We've got some practice problems to help you approximate the square roots of numbers. Remember, if you have any problems, see a math teacher near you. Let's practice those square roots.